Welcome to the Virginia Carolina Deer Tracts podcast. I'm Mike Davis, and I am here to talk about everything hunting, hunting land, and the great outdoors in both Virginia and North Carolina. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, everybody, we are back with another episode of the Virginia Carolina Deer Tracts podcast. And it's this time of year where the topic we're going to discuss today is, unfortunately, it's still very necessary and very important. I would love to say in 2025, going into 2026, we wouldn't have to talk about this stuff anymore. But we do. And with that in mind, I've got Glen Mayhew here from the TSSA, which is the Tree Stand Safety Awareness. I don't know if it's followed up with organization or what, but Glen, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, Mike, thank you so much for asking me to be on. Yeah, you're exactly right. I look forward to the day when we don't need this organization anymore. We've made some great progress over the years, but there's still plenty of opportunity to improve. You know, unfortunately, well, let me say fortunately, tree stands are a great tool. They are a great tool in our toolbox to deer hunt from. And when used properly, just like anything else, when we follow the safety guidelines and rules, you can come home. You should come home safe every single time. But unfortunately, people don't follow all the safety guidelines and everything that we would like for them to follow. And therefore, we do have incidents every single year. And so therefore, we're still here, and we have a September, as you mentioned, is just around the corner there for Tree Stand Safety Awareness Month.
Well, it is that time, and hopefully the information that we put out there today and the conversation that we have will register with someone who maybe hasn't given the topic the necessary consideration in the past. But like you mentioned, the main goal is we want everybody to come home safe, right? Everybody's got somebody that's going to miss you if you don't come home.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's no excuse. And I tell people, I said, don't always think about necessarily yourself. Think about your family, because whenever you have a fall from a tree stand, it's typically not a minor issue. It's a major issue. When you're falling from 15, 20, 25, the highest fall, Mike, that I've ever had documented was from 50 feet. I couldn't believe it. I thought I was reading it wrong.
Whoa.
50 feet, yeah. That was down in Georgia, actually, out of a big, tall Georgia pine, I guess.
Wow.
And gentleman fell 50 feet and survived. And by God's grace, that gentleman survived that fall. But, you know,
wow.
Even at the lower distances, when you hit the ground, and people, oftentimes when I'm doing talks, people will say, well, I've jumped out of trees, I've jumped out of barns. And I said, you know what? I grew up with a big dairy farm right in my backyard. And I was a country kid growing up. I jumped out of trees too, but I said there's a difference.
Yeah.
The difference in that is that I planned that jump when I jumped out of the tree from 8 or 10 feet up, or when I jumped out of that barn out of the top and we were putting hay in it. I planned that jump and I knew it was going to happen. When we have that tree stand fall, that's not a planned event. And so you're out of control.
Yes.
Oftentimes people will go off backwards, the way gravity does when you're in that climbing phase, either going up or down. Oftentimes you go out backwards and you hit on your back or the back of your neck. So there's a big difference between a planned fall or jump versus a fall out of a tree stand. And thus,
yeah, I don't even think that's debatable, Glenn. I think that is 100%. Registering on the obvious scale. But even so, some people still tend to ignore it. Now, before we go further down the tree stand safety stuff, I do want to take just a second. I'd like to know myself, but I think the listeners, I want to know a little bit how you got into the tree stand safety and the outdoor industry in general.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share that. So my background is by trade, I'm a firefighter paramedic. Okay. And I've used that background of safety and EMS all along my pathway. If you go back, I think I started teaching hunter education in Virginia somewhere around 2010 in that range. And from then I learned about tree stands and tree stand safety. There was a team actually that had been formed in the state, and they asked me to come over and do a little talk with them about trauma I had seen related to tree stand falls. And again, this was all fairly new to me as far as it being an organization, an organized effort. And so when I did that, after I did it, they asked me to come on and be part of that team. And so I was obliged to do that. And the more I learned, the more questions I had, and the more I realized there was a need for something to really be focused at a national level. And so I started putting some of my thoughts down on paper and reached out to, I only knew one person at that time in the industry, and that was Marilyn Bentz, who is the executive director for the National Bowhunter Education Foundation. Reached out to her, shared with her some of my ideas, and she goes, I think you've got a great concept, but it's going to take some money to do this. Well, little did I know, it was perfect timing. I reached out. I didn't know anybody in the industry. I said, well, let me just reach out to Hunter Safety System. They're number one in the harness industry, tree stand harness industry. I don't know anybody there, but all they can do is tell me no.
Right.
Little did I know they were doing the same thing. They wanted to put together an organization, and they were actually starting to put together a pitch for this. The owner, or one of the co-owner, Jerry there, had already started putting that together, and it was perfect time. It was like God meant it to be. I reached out to them at that perfect time. They said, hey, let's talk. I had a phone conversation with them. Next thing you know, they said, come down to Alabama. I'm sitting in their boardroom talking with Jerry and some of the others. I get up and go to the bathroom, and I come back out, and Jerry looks at me and he says, Glenn, you're going to be the president or the executive director of this nonprofit we're going to form today. And
Wow.
that's how it got started.
Wow.
It's really that perfect timing. And so I've used my background in fire and EMS, my hunter education background, plus I tell everybody my paying job now is I'm work for Radford University. I'm an assistant provost and associate dean here. And so you blend all those educational and safety pieces together, and it's a perfect mix.
Wow, that's quite a story. But I think the paramedic and EMT background kind of blends perfectly into this, from a safety perspective. I hate to say that human beings operate this way, but with that background, we're going to give you a little bit more credibility when it comes to safety. You know what I mean? You're not just a classroom professor who read about it in a textbook, and then you're just teaching it to other people. You've got some real life experience that lends a lot of credibility to that.
Yeah, no, actually, I've run many falls from tree stands, and I had some good friends that were in wheelchairs as a result of tree stands. So yeah, being able to blend all of that together really does help formulate a full picture, and it does help with that credibility, as you so mentioned. So yeah, I've been blessed to be able to have all these different opportunities and put it together.
Yeah, well, I feel like what you're doing is not only important work, but it's got to be making a difference. I know it's making a difference, and that's why one of the reasons I was so eager to partner with you on this podcast is because I wanted to help spread that word. What little bit I don't have that paramedic background. I've got plenty of stories of my own tree stand shenanigans that I'm lucky to walk away from. And I've learned lots of lessons from that that will not be repeated. But very fortunate that some things didn't turn out worse than they did. How big of an issue today are the tree stand accidents, like compared to 10 years ago or 20 years ago? I don't know if there's really a running statistic on something like that, but do you feel like it's declining? Is it getting better? Is it the same every year?
Yeah, when you look at it on a national level, there is no perfect data set out there because many states don't collect data on tree stand falls while they're required to collect information and investigate anything firearms incident related. They're not necessarily required to do so from a tree stand perspective.
That's interesting.
So some of it is piecing data together. So there's not a perfect example or perfect illustration of it out there like we see with firearm incidents. However, for those states that do track it on a regular basis, and I keep up with all of this, for those that do, when you look at the deer hunting incidents, tree stand falls typically will outnumber the number of firearm incidents related to deer hunting. So from a deer hunter's perspective, tree stand falls are a more significant issue when you don't follow the safety regulations or safety rules than firearms incidents are. So we've done from a hunter perspective, we've done a great job of reducing the numbers of firearms related incidents out there. We've done a great job of that. But we really needed to focus and hone in on these tree stand incidents. And so that's part of what our messaging with the Tree Stand Safety Awareness Foundation is about, is amplifying that message and helping all the DWRs, the hunter ed instructors out there across the country, using your podcasts like yours and partnering with all these different organizations to help get the message out there so that we can see a reduction. And we've seen the numbers start to decline, but one is too many.
Right.
We still got plenty of work to do.
Yeah, I was thinking about it earlier today, and I don't know that this is a fair comparison, but something that is acceptable to discuss now that wasn't several years ago was like mental health, right? The men's mental health thing, and I feel like, not that I'm comparing this to a mental health issue, but I want to compare it to being the norm, being accepted to talk about this, for guys to not be, to not have that macho ego thing that they don't need to take these steps. I guess that's where I was going with that.
Yeah, you and I both do a lot of outdoor shows. We're there, we have booths and everything, so we talk to a lot of individuals. And when I do hunter ed courses, I talk to a lot of people that are either just getting started or whatever. Unfortunately, I've had to grow to accept that there are some people I just can't change. I can't convince. Even some that have had falls, that you still can't convince that wearing a full body harness and staying attached before your feet leave the ground until your feet get back on the ground is the right thing to do. And that's just hard for me to believe, but I've had to grow to accept that and realize help change as many people as possible. And you do have that tough guy syndrome out there that, hey, it's not going to happen to me. I can't fall, or I'm going to grab a limb on the way down. But oftentimes, if you ask them, hey, do you know somebody that's fallen from a tree stand? Well, yeah, my buddy here or this person. Yeah, I know him. So I'm like, all right. So there's something to this.
Yeah.
Just not making it up. And the tough guy syndrome, though, I love playing with that is I've had so many people tell me they can grab a limb, and you may have heard me tell the story, I'm not sure. But the way I overcome that is they said, yeah, I can grab a limb on the way down. And I said, all right, well, you're such a tough person. You hunt way up there. You hunt from 30 feet up. Well, when you fall from 30 feet up, there's this thing pulling on you called gravity. And we can't overcome gravity like that. So as we fall, our bodies accelerate. And from 30 feet up, when you actually strike the ground, the human body is accelerated to 30 miles per hour from 30 feet up. So what I'll tell that person, I said, all right, let's do this. You think you're going to be able to grab that limb? You and I go out and get in my pickup truck. We're going to go down the road. When I get up to 30 miles per hour, I'm going to roll the window down and you reach out and grab a sign as we go by it at 30 miles per hour. And they look at me like, are you crazy? You can't do that. I said, exactly. And you're not going to be able to grab that limb and hold on to it in that free fall either. So you got to use things like that to get their attention so that it does make sense to them.
I think that is a fantastic analogy, Glenn. I really do, because I think most people, when they say something like that, in their mind, really what they're thinking is that there's going to be a branch right there when it happens, and that they're going to have those ninja cat-like reflexes. They're going to be just happen to be turned facing the right way. That all of that's going to just play out like an action movie kind of sequence, but you and I know that that's just not the way it goes. So I really like that analogy of the 30 mile an hour, because I don't, everybody understands what gravity is, but I don't really think they understand the math of what that acceleration looks like after you start hitting the 20 and 30 foot mark.
Yeah, even, we've had people with significant injuries and even fatalities from as low as 8 feet. Like,
Yeah.
uh, and that's just because, again, when you fall off, typically when those falls occur, especially during the climbing phases, which is when we see about 2/3, anywhere from about 60 to 70% of the falls actually happen either when they're climbing up, climbing down, or somewhere in a transition at the top, into or out of a stand. And that can be ladder stands or hang on style stands, either one. And then climbers, 60 to 70% of those falls happen during that time period, up and down in transition. And the majority of those falls, when you see them fall, they end up, just because of physics and gravity, they end up going off backwards. And so oftentimes they'll end up, as they fall, they're going off backwards, and they end up hitting either right on their back or they'll hit on their neck. And we're talking significant impacts here, a lot of force being exerted just for that split second that causes all the trauma to the body.
Yeah.
If they do go off feet first and actually land feet first, then again, there's still a lot of that force is still the same amount of force, but it's being transferred through the body in a different way. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Not only that, you're, typically not going to be landing on a perfectly flat surface. It's going to be uneven. There's going to be roots sticking out. There's going to be, small saplings of different things around, just, all kinds of things to turn that ankle, snap that leg, not to get, too graphic there, but I mean, that's the reality of what happens. And,
yeah,
and people need to understand that.
yeah. In fact, one of our previous board members, he had experienced a fall himself, and he'd reached out to us. He's in the outdoors industry, and he had shared with us his experience of falling. He was putting up a stand. He was out early in the season, placing stand, and he fell. He had his young son, I think he was 7 or 8 at the time, was with him. The son was standing on the ground, witnessed him fall. His son had never been to this property before. All right, so they're way back on this property. He comes to, he realizes he's significantly injured. It knocked him out when he hit. He comes to, his son is sitting on his chest, screaming and crying, daddy, daddy, daddy. And when you hear his story, it just brings tears to your eyes. The impact that had on him, that his son witnessed that, and then his son sitting on his chest, screaming his name and crying, and then having to talk his son. He couldn't get up to go for help. He had significant injury. He had to talk his son into going back, trying to find his way back, because he had never been on this property before at that age. And just how traumatic, not only that was for him, but his son.
Right.
And,
Yeah. I actually heard you tell this story. I want to say it was on maybe the NDA 365 podcast.
yeah,
Uh, I may have been a year or two ago. I remember hearing that story, and that was, man, what a story. And if that doesn't open your eyes, there may not be any help for you, really.
yeah. Again, it's not just you. You've got to think about your family, the
Yeah,
impact it has on them.
100%.
That really drives that point.
Yeah. Yeah, and going back to that macho thing, if in that situation, if you are being that way and your kid is watching you be unsafe, well, then that's what you're teaching that kid, that it's okay to do that also. Even if nothing traumatic happens to you, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you know, your child may be hunting on their own and be at risk, because of what you've taught them. you
Yeah,
know?
Mike, you're spot on there. So yeah, we need to be the examples for our children and making sure that they're doing it the right way, the safe way. Um,
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I'll tell you, I leverage, we have a lot of lady hunters out there, and our ladies are really good at following directions and following the safety rules and everything. They're really good at that. But a lot of times when we have them come through at the different events and stuff, if it's a full family, and I love it when a family comes and
Yeah.
we talk through this as a family. Boy, that mom, especially if there's a kid involved, oh, that mom, she's all over it,
Oh, yeah.
everything. It's like Mama Bear or that doe that's got a fawn with her. Protection mode is in effect.
Yeah.
Can leverage that so well. And boy, those moms are going to make sure it's done. And so,
Awesome.
because women just do, they're protective, and they really do believe in they're better at following rules and following directions and doing the right thing. So,
Well, I've heard it said many times, and sometimes I believe it, sometimes I don't, but it's usually probably more right than wrong. I always hear that women are way smarter than men anyway. I just don't like to admit it, usually, but
yeah,
Now, with all that being said, Glenn, let's walk people through the basics of,
sure.
of tree safety. Like you mentioned earlier, being attached from the moment you reach the tree, climbing up to the moment you get back down. So, let's take some folks through those steps, just to kind of coach them up a little bit.
Absolutely no. And this is the perfect time of the year to be going over this, Mike, as you mentioned in the opening. We have something called the ABCs of tree stand safety. And being in education, when we were first trying to come up with something, that they were saying, well, there's 15 different things you got to do. And I was like, whoa, 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 time out. That's not going to happen. We need to boil this down to 3 or 4 things that people can truly take away that's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
Came up with the ABCs of tree stand safety. So A really backs you up before you ever get to the woods. A is to always remove and inspect your equipment. We as hunters do a terrible job of taking our stands down each year and bringing them in.
Guilty.
Yeah, yeah. Doing that preventative maintenance, making sure that we're keeping our equipment in top working order. We pay a lot of money for these tree stands are not cheap anymore. So, you want to protect your investment. So bring them in, inspect them, make sure the cables are in good working order. There's no significant rust or wear on the cables, no fraying. Same thing with the straps. The ratchet straps, those need to be replaced. And in fact, a lot of the manufacturers are now putting actual tabs on there with a manufacturer date and saying that they should be replaced a minimum of every 2 years. And so those ratchet straps undergo a lot of stress when they're left out there in the woods attached to that tree stand. So looking at that, looking at our harness, looking at our rope systems, looking at our systems that whatever we're climbing with to make sure everything is in good working order. So that's getting it removed and getting it inspected. That's always remove and inspect. That's A. B is buckle on that full body harness. Every one of us should be using a full body harness, whether we're using the one that came in the tree stand that we bought or we're using an aftermarket version of a full body harness. Either way, I don't care what you use as long as you use it every single time. And that includes, a lot of people forget about this. So I practice in my backyard. I live back in the woods, Mike. And so I've got trees around my backyard. I'll put some stands up for me to practice with my bow up in the tree stand there. So make sure if you're doing that, you've got your harness on and you're connected.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only is it protecting you from a safety standpoint, but I like to think of it as perfect practice because I'm wearing what I'm going to be hunting in, and that's going to make me a more confident hunter come season when I'm out there trying to make that shot. So B is buckle on your full body harness every single time. Even if you're going to have to inspect a stand, move a stand, hunting, it doesn't matter. If you're off the ground, you need to have that harness on. All right, so that's B. C is connect before your feet leave the ground. So, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, 60 to 70% of those falls are happening before we actually get up there in the stand. So, if you're one of those people that wait until they get into the stand and then put the strap on and connect to the strap, you're missing your greatest percentage of when falls actually occur. I went back and was looking at some data earlier. And if you look at the data, and about 85% of the fall victims did not have a full body harness either with them or on at the time of the incident. Now that means 15% did. So for that 15% that did, they weren't connected. So I like to think of it this way. You can put that harness on, but it's not going to do its job that it's intended to do unless you connect it to the tree or to the rope system that you're using. The analogy I use is just like jumping out of an airplane with a parachute on your back. Unless you pull the cord, it doesn't. Unless you've got the automatic deployment, the low altitude deployment piece, but it just becomes another piece of clothing. So you've got to make sure you're using it for its intended purpose and connecting it for it to be able to work and protect you. So that's C, connect before your feet ever leave the ground and stay connected until you're back on the ground. You should never be disconnected. And then lastly is D. We added the letter D a few years ago because when we were looking at all these incidents that we reviewed, we saw that a lot of people weren't being found for 8, 10, 12, 24 hours even after their fall incident. And what was the reason for that? The reason was because they were wanting to keep that honey hole secret. They didn't want to tell anybody where they were hunting. Well, it's important that you let somebody know where, at least where to start looking for you, at least a farm, if you haven't been able to drop a pin, or let somebody know on a map or something where your stands are. Because I can't imagine what being laying out there through the dark into the next day, wondering if anybody's ever going to find me.
Right.
Oftentimes, Mike, I don't know about where you hunt, but where I hunt, sometimes I don't have cell phone coverage.
Yeah.
I don't have it available.
Yeah, that's a great point. Especially where I live, it's very rural, and there's a lot of areas where cell phone service is spotty. So, don't wait until you are in the stand to tell somebody where you're at. Let them know, before you head out. Like, this is where I'm heading, this is where I'm going.
Yeah, and in Hunter Ed, we use a little saying, plan your hunt, hunt your plan, and let somebody know when you plan to return home at a
Yeah.
proper time so that they know to come looking and where to, in general, to start looking. Because if you tell nobody where you're going, you may have 6 or 8 different properties that you hunt. Well, time is ticking. When you're badly injured, there's something called the golden hour in trauma. And time is ticking. Every minute that you're losing before you get to definitive care in that trauma center, your chance of survival goes down. So let somebody know. Share that information, whether it's with your significant other, if you're on a lease and you've got a big map in your clubhouse or whatever, where you got pins up there, however you want to do it. With the hunting apps that we have, like Hunt Stand and some of the others, you can plot those on there, share that with your buddies. There's numerous ways to do it. The other thing I tell people is put a whistle, attach a whistle to your harness. And there's a reason for that. Your voice, number one, you may not be able to yell very loud due to your injury.
Yeah.
And your voice will go away soon. Your voice will only carry so far. But it doesn't take a lot of breath to blow one of those little safety whistles. And those safety whistles have a very high tone that carries that sound a long ways. So I always tell people, keep that whistle attached to their harness or on their person so that you have that there available to you.
Man, I think that's such an obvious idea, and that's such a common thing in like camping gear and survival stuff. Why I've never thought to put those two together is beyond me. But you're right, that's a phenomenal idea. I've always heard that from safety perspective, for hiking and all that stuff. So great idea. My own personal experience with the D letter is, I always tell my wife like which stand I'm going to. I've got my little cute names for the stand, but if
Yeah.
I say, "Hey, I'm going to irrigation station," something like that, my wife knows where that stand is. And if I have the cell phone capability, I will also text her when I am in the stand safe. Once I have got all the way to the top and I'm in and my gear and I'm settled down, I let her know that I'm in the tree safe so that, she doesn't have to, worry for 4 hours or however long I'm hunting. She already knows I've got to that point, so I'm probably going to be good until at least dark or whatever. So that's just something that I do.
No, that's a great practice, Mike. Thank you for sharing that. That's a fabulous practice, especially if you've got cell phone coverage. That again, that just reassures them that you're staying safe. The other thing I'll mention about cell phones and whistles, don't have them in your pack. If a fall occurs and your pack is up there and you're down here, you can't get back up there to it. Have it
Right.
in your person.
Great
Uh,
point.
that's
Great point.
really important. Yeah, it's nothing worse than looking up, 15, 16, well, it's up there and I can't get back up there.
Yeah.
Get,
Yeah. And I don't know if those voice to text commands will work that far, especially if you're unable to communicate properly, let's say.
yeah. Hey, the other thing that I want to share with your listeners is, saddles have really taken off. And while saddles have been around a long time, they really haven't been in the forefront like they are right now. And so we partnered up, TSSA, Tree Stand Safety Awareness Foundation, partnered up with a number of the saddle companies this past year. And we have now developed an ABCs of saddle hunting safety as well.
Fantastic.
And it goes right with it. It's the same stuff. It really is. A is always inspect your equipment. Now saddles, you're removing those pretty much every time when you go in and come out. That's a great thing with the saddle hunting. You typically don't leave those in place very long, but inspecting your equipment every time. B, buckle on your saddle. Make sure you've got it buckled on completely. We're often doing those types of things in low light settings. So
Yeah.
making sure that you've got it buckled correctly before you go to make that climb. C is connect before you leave the ground. Every saddle company advocates that you be connected before your feet leave the ground and stay connected. Whether you've got your linesman's rope connected or you're actually got your tether up at the top, you never come off, you never disconnect without being connected to one or both of them.
Yeah. And I mean, really, and like I watch a lot of the saddle hunting tip videos and stuff like that. And, they go so far as to have that extra lineman's rope or whatever. If they got to work around a branch,
Yep.
whatever they got to do, they got that second connection before they disconnect the first. So yeah.
Yeah, no, you're spot on there. And no, we're thinking, this is going to work well. In fact, we've got both of those, the ABCs of tree stand safety and the ABCs of hunting saddle safety out there on our website. People can print it off. It's free. People to go out there and print them off. They want to hand them out or whatever. So it's free out there for the take.
Yeah, I think, it's very straightforward, common sense advice. And it just amazes me in this day and age, how it just kind of just goes, just people just in one ear, right out the other. And what amazes me, it's not like the safety gear is hard to get. In this day and age, between Amazon and Bass Pro, Cabela's, all the trade shows, the local shops, a safety harness and safety ropes, they're right there at your fingertips. They're completely easy to use. I mean, there's nothing difficult about it. You know,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to hook on the safety rope on the ground than to wait till you get to the top of the stand and try to start hooking up stuff. I mean, you just hook up to it, boom, and slide it up with you, and you're done.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I hear a lot of those excuses when we're doing shows and things. So I'm going to kind of run back through some of what you just said there. Yeah, people used to say, "Oh, they're too difficult to put on. They're uncomfortable." Yeah, the excuses go on and on, but they're really not.
Mm-mm.
They're very easy to put on. They're very comfortable. I'll wear one the whole time I'm at a show.
Yeah. I've been seeing you do it for 4 or 5 years now.
I'll even make a mistake every now and then and walk in the bathroom and still have the thing on. Have it on. So, it just becomes part of it.
Yeah.
And I tell people, think about what you want, because you can get what I call a plain Jane one, where it doesn't have pockets and all these extra little gadgets on it. Or you can get one that has pockets and cell phone charger, all kinds of stuff.
Right.
You can get these things out. It's just like a car.
Right.
You can get all the extras on it you want. Just about. It's individual choice, and so think about what you want and what you want to use, and so then it does give you choice. So you can find something that's right for you. Super lightweight, some weigh more than others, and that's the reason I bring stuff from just about every manufacturer of harnesses with me, so they can try them on if they've never had one on at many of the shows. So yeah, and then you mentioned walking up and connecting to the rope. That prusik knot and rope safety lines, a lot of people call them lifelines. That is a trade name from Hunter Safety System. There's a number of manufacturers that make those rope safety lines now that have the prusik knot on it. But boy, that has been a game changer, a true game changer, because it does give you that ability to stay connected. Before your feet ever leave the ground, you hook in, you connect that carabiner right onto that prusik and slide it along, slide it, and if something happens, it's got you.
Yeah.
It's just that easy. And once you do it, I tell people, once you do it right, and you get up there in that stand, and you can feel when you get that prusik up there as high as you can reach, when you're standing in your stand, and you go just to lean forward a little bit, and you feel it pulling back on you, it's insurance. I mean, there is so much comfort that comes over you to know that you got that insurance policy attached to you.
Yeah.
Very comforting and reassuring.
Agree.
You never get in stand without it again.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say also, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but this is something I see a lot locally. For those of you that use climbing stands, do not wait until you're 20 feet up to connect, because the climbing part, as we're all aware, is the most difficult, and climbing down as well. That's when the stuff's going to go wrong. And I am speaking from experience. And thankfully I was connected. I think I even told you about this a couple of years ago. I had the strap that was connecting the bottom climber to the top climber, kind of a measure of safety, and it gave way. It broke. It broke because the bottom stand was not connected as well as I thought it was. So when I put all my weight on it to lift the upper part, the bottom half gave way and that strap just broke. Luckily I had the kind of upper body strength to kind of catch my elbows on the rails, but I was connected. And thankfully was able to kind of wiggle my way up and perch on the top until help could come. But I know a lot of my friends, and I give them a hard time, and I'm gonna give them a hard time here. It is a little bit of a pain in the neck to work that thing up while you're climbing, but I mean it costs you maybe 2 or 3 minutes overall in the climb, and it's not worth the risk of not doing it.
Yeah, no, well said. We hear that, oh, it just takes too much time. It takes too much time to do it. It really doesn't. We've timed it out, and it really takes it for well-versed climbers, 30 to 45 seconds more.
There you go. Yeah.
And then people that maybe are a little more novice, upwards of a couple minutes more.
Yeah.
Talking about, but it keeps you connected. So
Yeah.
either use the strap that comes with the stand or the harness, excuse me, put on the tree, so that you can connect your carabiner to it, or you can use one of the short ropes. You can use a linesman's
Mm-hmm.
and run it around the tree and use that with the prusik on it and does the same thing. In fact, the rope is a little faster than the actual strap is.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
you got to go fast, use the rope.
Yeah, yeah, because you don't have to work with that buckle. But
And, and
yeah,
in fact, there's something new that just came out this year, just got launched this year that I think is going to be also be a little bit of game changer for those that are big climbers with the climbing stands. Hunter Safety System just came out with something called a slap strap. And
yes,
there's a single rope in that, and it really grasps the tree, so I can pitch it up that tree, and it goes around the tree, and then I just pull on the rope, and it cinches down immediately. So it's going to make it even faster and more efficient for those people that are trying to go up the tree and down the tree and be able to stay connected that much easier.
yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you if there, what was new, anything new coming out this year or anything on the horizon that you could share with us. Uh, and I remember seeing some stuff about that. It may have been as early back as the ATA show last year. I
Yep.
remember seeing
That,
some stuff about that. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's where they launched it at the ATA show. You're right. You're right about that. This past year, with January, February time frame when the ATA.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to be a game changer for those using climbers. Having that slap strap, the single version. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Um, I got a couple other things that I wanted to bring up that aren't tree stand safety awareness. Before I jump into that, is there anything else you feel like we need to cover on that topic?
Um, the only other thing I'll say is on the climber. Excuse me, on the ladder stands. Um, Make sure that you're using the proper number of people. When the manufacturers recommend that you use at least 3 people to put
Yeah.
ladder stand. I know it's tough to get two yourself and a couple buddies out there, but if something goes south when you're putting that stand up the first time, believe me, you want some buddies there that's going to be able to hold on to that stand.
Oh, yeah.
Now, some of the manufacturers have gone to jaw systems on their
Shout
stand.
out to Tony at Trophy Tree Stands.
Yeah, Tony is one of those manufacturers that has a jaw system at trophy tree stands. And, that enables you to really have some connection to that tree before your feet ever leave the ground. So it's an added safety benefit before you have to climb up there and attach that ratchet strap. Some of the others have done crisscross straps or cables on them now. There's some other manufacturers out there. River's Edge Tree Stands does that. I think some of the muddy ones also maybe have some of that on it. So there are numerous manufacturers that are moving in that direction. And all of those are added safety features to help keep you, the hunter, safe out there.
Yeah.
So make sure you're doing that, whether you're putting them up or taking them down, so to help make sure that you come home safe.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Glad you brought that up. And you're right. That I'll say it again. That jaw system on those trophy tree stands. I helped a buddy put one up, and man, what a difference that made. And I even said it on that podcast. I mean, and those of you that have put up ladder stands, you know how daunting it is to get to the top to try to put that first ratchet strap on there, especially if it's a wide one like a two-man stand and that thing is shucking and shimmying while you're trying to keep your weight right in the middle of that thing. Yeah, no, this is that makes a huge difference.
It's a game changer. It really is.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Well, cool. In our closing remarks, we'll kind of go back and say some tree stand safety stuff again. But I do want to ask you. I want to get into your silver fox thing a little bit. Um, this man here, Glenn, wears many hats, and the tree stand safety stuff is just one of them. He is also part of the MDE Outdoor group, which we've had the pleasure to meet and hang out with at several of the outdoor shows and get to know a little bit. They were on a different road from us this year, so we didn't get to spend as much time with them. Um, but I've always enjoyed your videos on the YouTube channel and different stuff like that. from bow hunting to muzzle loading, the whole 9 yards. You are quite an accomplished hunter, my friend.
Well, thank you, Mike. But you learn something new every time you're in the outdoors. Uh, that's the beauty of it. You learn something new every single time you get out there. And I've always been out from a little kid. I mean, I've always been running through the woods. I can remember running through the woods all day barefooted as a little kid. I lived in the country, but yeah, being associated with MDE Outdoors and being able to get out and self-video my hunts, my fishing trips, and other things has really it's been a nice new challenge for me. And if you've never self-filmed, whether it be hunting or fishing or anything outdoors, give it a try. If you're looking for that next new adventure, it really raises the bar and the challenge, especially with bow hunting.
Oh gosh, yes.
Because I run 3 to 4 cameras when I'm in the tree. And trying to run that many cameras when you're trying to let that big buck get in on you, or that doe. I'll tell you, I think does are harder to kill than the bucks are. Those does will pick you off. So
oh man, there's always that one, that one.
That big nanny doe will get you every single time. It just drives you crazy, but it really has. I think it's made me a better hunter. I really do think I have had, since I started, I was joking about this with them the other day. I've been very fortunate, and I've gotten to kill some great deer. But since I've started the filming and working with MDE Outdoors, I have killed my best bucks ever.
Wow.
And I've done it consistently. I think I'm more focused because I know I'm out there trying to really get it done. That doesn't mean I'm successful every single time by any means, but I think it's made me be a more focused hunter. And same thing with fishing out there. And I do the kayaking, bass boating, whatever, rivers, ponds, lakes. I love it all. I just love being outdoors. People joke here at work. I'm here at work in my office right now at the university, but I'll come in sometimes on the weekend. They don't even know who I am because normally I have a suit and everything on. Classes ready to go back into session. I'll come in, I may be dressed in camo or something, have a ball cap on. They go, "Can I help you?" And my hat off, and oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize who you were. But yeah, so and I get obviously the silver fox from the hair here, but I really do enjoy that. I tell people what you see on camera is truly me, and we do try to be real life about it, and people enjoy that because let's face it, we all can't go on paid hunts. So 99.9% of what you're seeing on MDE Outdoors is truly out there where we're going to somebody's farm, or we're on a lease, or public land hunting. It's just like the average hunter can expect to do. It's not going to paid hunts every other state, all these different states. There might be 1 or 2 you'll see on there, but it is minimal. The numbers. We try to reflect what the average hunter gets through out there. And I think that sets well with the viewers.
Well, I think it certainly does with me. Getting to know you guys a little bit certainly helps cement that. But I can certainly testify that if these guys are not the same guys that you see on camera, then they are really, really good at faking it. And I mean, like for years on end. So I don't think that's the case. And, I love the fact that, not only, does it have that realism, that you're also hunting in kind of our region. I've always been a big supporter of what we've got going on here in Virginia and North Carolina. And I know you guys cover some of the other states, Maryland, West Virginia. I think I've even seen you in Ohio, but that's still, you're not just hammering the Midwest states, and I think us Eastern folks like to see some other Eastern folks having some success out there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and hey, let's face it, Virginia and surrounding areas here, we've been knocking down some hammers. There is nothing to be ashamed of at all. We've got some great hunting here. It's not just deer hunting.
Yeah.
We've got great hunting. We have great outdoor activities
We do.
right here in our back doors. It's just a matter of taking advantage of it and getting out there.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Do you want to give a quick, I'll put all the social media links and stuff, but for the folks that want to see the MDE Outdoors, I know you have a YouTube channel, but if they're wanting to watch you on TV, where can they catch you guys at?
let's see. My goodness. I'll have give me a second to
Ah,
get the rundown on everything where we are because there's
man,
like
I stumped him. I stumped him.
there's 4 or 5 different areas that we do run MDE on.
That's okay. And you can get back to me because we can always include the links and stuff. That's no problem. Um, I know that, and I don't know if I'm gonna get it out in time, but I know that you are really involved with an upcoming benefit archery shoot that you do every year. And I'm really going to try to get this thing edited and get it out to at least give you a little time to promote it. But tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so every year TSSA does a annual fundraiser 3D shoot at Rub Line Archery Range in Moneta, Virginia. And we do it
Bedford County, right?
Bedford County. Yeah.
Yep.
Bedford County, right there in Moneta near Smith Mountain Lake. It's probably about 5, 6 minutes from the lake there. But we do that annually, usually in late August. This year it's August 23rd, starts at 8 in the morning and goes to about 2 in the afternoon. Mike, our partners, I couldn't ask for anything better. They are so good to us. And this year I'm going to be giving away somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000 worth of stuff.
Wait a minute. Say that again. Say that again.
Between $8,000 to $10,000 worth of outdoor gear at this benefit shoot. That's
Wow.
amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I've got such great partners. I'm just so blessed to be able to do that. But here's the great thing about it, though. You don't have to be a great shot to win. In fact, I draw stuff out of the hat, so everybody's name goes in the hat. Every paid entry goes in the hat. We give away stuff every 15 to 20 minutes, just giving it away,
Wow.
15, 20 minutes throughout the day. Then the top 3 shooters in each of the 6 classes get prize packages for those that really are good shots. And then at the end of the day, everybody's name goes back in the hat. And we've got 3 big grand prize drawings this year for anybody and everybody. Every paid entrant has an opportunity to win. We've got bows, we got crossbows, we got tree stands, we got blinds, we've got trail cameras, arrows. We got so much stuff that it's just crazy. We've got for those that are into the saddles, we got saddle stuff this year. It just goes on and on and on, and we're giving it all away.
Man,
So,
that sounds like a really, really good time.
yeah, and then we have a long shot. People love doing those long shots. $100 to the prize winner on that one.
Yeah.
50-50. It's a great day. Bring the whole family out. We've got kids categories, divisions. We got women's divisions and multiple. We got 6 different divisions.
Man, that's great. I finally got into the 3D shoots about 2 years ago, and man, it's got its hooks in me deep. I love it. Absolutely love it. And it's I think I told you before we started recording that for personal reasons I'm not going to be able to make it this year. I don't want to get into my health stuff, but I really wish I could be there, and I'm certainly planning on being a part of it next year. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, well, we'd love to have you come out, and hey, you might be able to set up a booth there.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
But
That's awesome.
We pull people in. This shoot's gotten so large just because of the prize packages that we give away. We pull people out of North Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia as far as attendees there. So
it's in a good location for that. It's not terribly far. It's not at
yeah,
all.
and if you come in shoot early that morning, you can run over. You've got a little break. You want to get away for a little bit, run over to the lake, have a great lunch there on the lake. There's many restaurants right there nearby, and then come back from when we're doing all the big prize drawings and everything. So make a day of it.
There you go. There you go. And like I said, I'm gonna do my best to try to get this out in time to at least get a few days of promotion to help spread the word. about the archery shoot. But in case we don't, it still wasn't a waste of time to talk about it because you do it every year. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep, we do it every year right there at Rubline Archery in Manita, Virginia.
Fantastic.
So,
Fantastic.
all right. So Carbon TV, MDE Outdoors, Carbon TV, Outdoor Action TV, which is new, YouTube, and we've been on the Pursuit channel, went away from the Pursuit channel. We're considering going back there. We haven't made quite that decision yet, but looking back at that opportunity as well. So
Yeah.
And
It's a different world in that respect with all the digital stuff. I'm sure that's changed the landscape in ways that I don't even comprehend.
yeah, it really has. And a lot of our partners with MDE Outdoors are telling us they would rather we be in the digital media world rather than the true TV
That's interesting.
world. Just
Huh.
because they get more viewership on these digital channels than they do on the multimedia digital channels or social media channels rather than they do necessarily on the others. So they see it as more bang for their buck. So they're the one paying the bills. So.
Hey, that's certainly that's certainly the deciding vote a lot of times, I would say. It's just a business decision. So one last thing I wanted to cover with you, Glenn. I know everybody, at least in Virginia, everybody knows who Star City Whitetails is. Everybody knows about that. What a tremendous page that is. I'm not going to lie. I model a lot of the Facebook stuff I do after what Jeff does on that page, because, hey, what he's doing is working. I think it's tremendous. And, but maybe not everybody knows that Star City Whitetails has a podcast. And, so even though technically, I guess you're my competition in that sense, but I really don't look at it that way. I mean, but Glenn is, I guess, co-host of that podcast. Would that be an accurate description?
Yep, no, you're spot on there. So yeah, Jeff and I co-host a podcast called Star City Outdoors, where anything outdoors is fair game. That's our little.
There you go, man. I got to have a cool catchphrase. I got to come up with one. That was cool.
Yeah, anything outdoors is fair game. So we talk about all different topics on there. You can find us on all the different big podcast channels and everything. In fact, next week we're going to be interviewing some of the DWR folks to talk about some of the changes happening here in Virginia with some of the regulations coming up. So be watching out for that. So yeah, Jeff and I, and Mike, you're the same way. We're all blessed with the gift of gab. And we like to talk and then interview people and talk with people because let's face it, there's so much in the great outdoors that we can talk about and we should celebrate. And
yeah, I agree. And the whole reason I got into this is because I like to just sit around and talk hunting all day anyway. So might as well try to turn it into something useful. And in this episode, especially, I want to turn it into something useful because folks' safety is something that needs to be important to all of us. So kind of want to circle back to where we started this episode with the tree stand safety. I know September is Tree Stand Safety Awareness Month, and we're probably going to get this out a little bit ahead of that because I really want to promote your 3D shoot, but that's okay because people got to be safe in August too. So yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to be with me today, Glenn. You've shared a lot of fantastic information with me, which I knew that you would. And, I just can't thank you enough. And I hope that people take our message that we've talked about today. I hope they really take it to heart. And if not for themselves, then for their family that want them to come back home. So that's my parting shot. Glenn, you have anything you want to add to that?
Mike, I just want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to be on with you today and share that message of safety. I always tell people safety's not sexy and safety, it doesn't sell, but it's paramount so that we can all enjoy the great outdoors that we've been blessed to be able to do. And if we want to continue that, you got to follow the safety rules and regulations so that we can all enjoy it.
Yeah, that's right.
So just remember ABCs, all of the ABCs of tree stand safety. Go out there, check it out on our website, treestandsafety.org. Follow us on our Facebook page, Instagram. Out there, we always talking tree stand safety. We do a lot of big giveaways on there as well. So especially as the season's getting ready to kick off, and we just want everybody to have a great season and be safe about it and come home where they can enjoy it again the next day.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Well, Glenn, thank you so much. And maybe we can get on here again another day and share some more great stories. And man, that's it. That's all I got to say. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thank y'all so much.